Hi, I'm Dennis from Plain Truth Ministry. Welcome to Friday in the Word. Today I want to look at a section of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount where he talks about wealth and his concerns about wealth being our master. That section comes from Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 34. That's the entire discussion. And what I want to pull from that are two verses, Matthew chapter 6, verses 22 and 23, which read, "The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness?" Jesus plugs these two verses into his sermon, and in this portion of his sermon as he's talking about wealth, because it is a concern. Jesus talks in these verses about the idea that if wealth is your master, as he says in verse 19 and 20, if you are storing up treasures here on earth, then that must mean in your heart that you believe that the treasures that you can store up on earth, the wealth that you can gain, the power that may come from that here on earth, is what is going to save you. And that becomes your master. Jesus is saying, if you think that way, then you are completely off base. The light in you is full of darkness. And the more that you serve that master, the greater the darkness. Jesus looks in these two verses. If your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. In other words, if you see the world for what it is and build your worldview around the idea that the world that you're living in today is simply a world that you're passing through, then you will see the world much differently than if you live in a world and you see the world that you must have control over, and that this world is what's important. And the only way to succeed and master this world is through gaining wealth. If we see our life as saying things like, if I only had $1,000 more, if I only had a newer car, if I only had a bigger house, if I only had power over this or that, then my life would be complete. I can protect myself from those things around me through the wealth that I have and use it as a tool for my own security and, in essence, for my own salvation, because that's the master that I'm going to choose. Jesus here is reminding us that that is completely the wrong way to think about it. Because while there are things on this earth, there are troubles on this earth that we deal with on a regular basis, those things are only temporary, and they should not be the master that we serve. If our eye is good and our whole body is full of light, then we've come to the realization that we need something beyond ourselves to save us. And what we need is not the wealth of this earth. What we need is a Savior. And when we've accepted Christ as our Savior, we see the world completely different. We see the world for what it is, a temporary stop on our eternal journey. Jesus talks about this in another place when he talks about the parable of the seeds. And the third part of that parable, he talks about seeds being planted and thorns grow up around it, and the cares of the world pull us away from what is really important. That's what he's talking about here. Wealth can be a useful and valuable tool as we work to do God's will and use it in its proper way. But if it becomes our master, then we lose everything that we had hoped to gain. We can't have Christ as our master and wealth as our master. It just doesn't work. The whole body should be full of light as we see good. God bless.